Hello. In this video tutorial, I'm going to be going over how to import Bloodborne character models into Blender, including the textures with the UV mapping, specularity, and roughness maps. This video is not going to go over animations because I could not figure out how to get the animations working in Blender. We'll go over that in a little bit more detail later, but just so you know, this is going to only go over getting the models into Blender with the textures, and that's it. I want to give a big shout out to all of the resources made available by the Souls modding community and all the people at the Souls modding Discord for answering my questions and helping me along in this process. I just wanted to make a quick little tutorial video that goes over basically everything I've learned, because there are quite a few quirks and considerations and a lot of differing sources online. There's a lot of different tools that do the same thing basically, but I'm just going to show my process for this, and if you know a little bit more about Blender or about the Souls modding, then feel free to add on to the discussion in the comments, because I am really not a Blender expert. I only started learning Blender pretty recently, so there are perhaps ways to do this better, but as of right now, I don't know what they are. I believe that this process should work for Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 3. I haven't actually looked at the files of those games or tried to get them in Blender, but as far as I can tell, most of the From Software games use basically the same file formats and systems and stuff, so it should be applicable, or at least helpful, to people who are looking into modding, say, Elden Ring, for example. Alright, let's get started. So first of all, there are a few tools that you need to download. All the links are in the description. So first of all, there's this Demon Souls BND build. So just go ahead and download the exe, and then download and unzip the Aqua toolset as well. And then for the texture conversion, we need to download PaintNet, I think is the name of the software. So go ahead and download all those links in the description so that you can get everything ready. You also need, of course, the actual game files. I can't tell you exactly how to get those, and I can't provide them directly to you because they are copyrighted content, but if you have a little bit of internet know-how, then you can find them pretty easily. Just Google Bloodborne PKG torrent and you'll find them. So here we've got all the game files, and the folder that we're interested in for the purposes of this video is the CHR, or character folder. So you're going to see all of these codes and anibind.dcx and characterbind.dcx. So the anibind files contain all of the animation data, and the characterbind files contain all of the character model and texture data. So once you get the game files and you have in mind the character that you want to import, go ahead and go to the first link in the description where you will see the Souls modding wiki references page, and click on Bloodborne and go to Bloodborne enemy list. And here we have the names of all of the various character models and their associated character ID over here on the left. Today I'm going to be showing you how to import into Blender the best boy in the game, Beepus, aka Beast Possessed Soul. So he is C7500. Go back to our game files, scroll down to 7500, find his character bind file, and I'm going to show him, and then I'm also going to show a couple other characters, because depending on the complexity of the model and a couple other factors, there's going to be slightly different processes for different enemies. So go ahead and copy the characterbind.dcx. And what I've done is made a folder where I just put the Blender projects containing all the models, the game files for everybody, and then the actual tools for converting the files all in one convenient place. So let's go into game files, create a new folder for Beepus, and paste that DCX into there. So now open up Demon Souls BND build.exe, hit browse, go to our DCX, and then hit extract. So what this does is it basically pulls out the textures, which is this TPF file, as well as the actual character model, which is elsewhere. But just so that I don't have to click into all those folders again, I'm gonna copy this TPF file, go back to our Beepus root folder, paste it there, and then you can delete this folder because it doesn't have anything else that we really need to care about. Go ahead and delete this text file because that's just a list of everything that was exported. And you can also delete the original DCX file because we don't need that anymore. So while we still have the BND rebuilder open, we're going to extract all of the textures from the TPF file. Open it up and hit extract. And you're going to see file list.txt, which you can delete, and then a whole bunch of texture files in the DDS format. And we're going to have to convert those to PNG, but I'll get to that in a second. I'm going to rename this folder to Beepus Textures and delete that TPF file. So now you can close the BND rebuilder, go into the Aqua Toolset folder, and scroll down until you see soulsmodeltool.exe, and you have to drag the character bind file onto the exe, and it'll dump out the FBX, which is the 3D model, and then some like bone data files. And if you look at these DDSs, they look totally like corrupted and wrong, and that's because they are. So these are all junk and we don't need them. So go ahead and copy the FBX and put it into our Beepus folder, and then we can delete both of these. So now we're left with our 3D model and all of our textures. So in order for Blender to actually be able to read these textures, we have to convert them all to PNG using PaintNet. So you just have to Control-Shift-S to save as, and then hit PNG, and hit enter twice to export it. Control-W to close that and go to the next one, and PNG, enter, enter, and then just repeat. For characters with a lot of different textures, this can take a while, but if you get into the flow of it, it's really not too bad. And that's it. So go back into your window with all the textures open and just hit delete to get rid of all the DDSs. So these are all the texture files, and you're going to see, say, we've got the body and the horn and the fur for Beepus. Some characters only have the body, some have the body and the fur or feathers or whatever. But at the end of them, there's going to be a letter before the PNG extension. So there's A, which is just the regular texture, what you would expect to see, has all the colors and designs and everything. And then there's the N, which is the normal map. This basically tells the shader how to apply lighting onto the model that isn't actually part of the geometry. We've got S, which is the specularity map, and this basically tells the software how shiny something is. So if it's black, then it's not going to be reflective or shiny at all, and if it's white, like here with the eye, it's going to be the maximum level of reflection or specularity. And then the roughness map, for a lot of characters, it is just blank, and you can delete it, because if you actually put a blank roughness map into Blender and apply it to a model, I've found that it just kind of makes it worse. So just look at your R textures and make sure that they actually have something on them, because if they do, you are going to want to keep them, but if not, just go ahead and delete them. Alright, so now we can actually get started in Blender. Go ahead and open it up. Delete the cube. I'm using Blender 4.0.2, which is, as far as I'm aware, the latest release as of the recording of this video. So go up to Import and select FBX. Go to your Bloodborne Blender folder, Game Files, Beepus, FBX. So like I said, there are no animations, so your models are going to be T-posing, and you're also going to see all of these weird balls and cones and stuff. So what these are the bones, and as far as I can tell, the way that the FBX file format understands bone data and the way that Blender understands bone data are like completely different. And that's why importing a model with the armature skeleton into Blender using the FBX file format is a little bit broken. I don't know how to fix it. I looked online. Seems like other people don't know either. There might be a way. I'm not good enough in Blender to figure it out. So for the purposes of this video, you can just go over, you can just select it, go over to where you see pelvis, and just click the eye here to no longer see it. And click the little drop down triangle so that we can look at all the different meshes here on Beepus. You're going to want to go over to viewport shading in the upper right here, and you'll see everything turn pink. What I like to do is put a little bit more light in the scene so that I can get a better look at what I'm doing. So go ahead and select the light, default light up here. Hit G to move it. I'm going to move it sort of over to his right over here, and then hit Control C, Control V, and G to copy paste and transform another light. And then I'm just going to do the same thing kind of all around him so that we get a little bit of balanced lighting going on here. Now we can get started on applying the textures to the individual meshes. So go ahead and click on the mesh that you want to apply a texture to. Bring up this window here. Click the little clock in the upper left of it, and you have to go to Shader Editor. So this opens the geometry nodes for the shader of this particular mesh. Before you do anything, make sure that the strength on emission is at 0, because otherwise it's going to be glowing slightly and it's going to look bad. So you're going to see this image texture node running into the base color of the principled BSDF, which is the default shader for Blender. And you're going to see that it defaults to a DDS file. We no longer have the DDS files because Blender can't read them, so take whatever name you see up here and click the X and open up, go back into our Beepus and find the corresponding texture. So that was body.a.dds, so we're going to click body.a.png. Alright, that looks pretty good, but could look better. So what we have to do to apply the normal map is Shift A and then type IMA and enter to bring up the image texture node. Open up our body_n.png. Make sure color space is non-color. Then go ahead and drag the color node to the color node on your normal map, and then it's going to apply all of the map shading to Beepus, so that looks a lot better. Looks a lot less smooth. And I forgot to mention, make sure that the metallic slider on the shader is at 0, because our characters are not made of metal. So in order to add the specularity map, go ahead and do Shift A, IMA, enter again to bring up the image texture. Go to textures and body_s. Go and drag color to IOR level. And you're going to see what that does is makes certain parts of the model shinier and other parts not so much. So you can see the eye remains nice and reflective and everything else doesn't. And for characters without a roughness map, you can mess around with this until it looks good in your opinion. I feel like the best compromise is just to kind of leave it at default. And there's also this thing in the shader called subsurface scattering. That's basically for applying shading to things like skin where light bounces off like the inside of it. You can turn this up or down to your heart's content. I find that depending on the model, it can make it look better or worse. Just kind of a personal preference thing. For more humanoid models, I find that with the default radii, it kind of gives it a little bit of that Bloodborne chromatic aberration look with the red and green, but otherwise there's not really much of a need to bother with subsurface. So now that we've got the underlying body mesh all shaded and textured, what I like to do is copy everything. So you can go A and then Control C to copy it all, so that way we don't have to change the default values on this and stuff like that and add in new nodes and whatnot. So go into the next mesh. So we'll go into the next mesh here, which is our fur, and go ahead and hit A and then X to delete everything, and then Control V. And as you can see, it still has the texture for his skin on all of these little fur sections. So we have to select the proper texture, so go in and go to Fur A. Fur S, and Fur N. So you're going to see that all of these are black, and they should not be looking that way. So right now, Blender is taking the transparency of those PNGs and rendering it as the color black. So in order to fix this, we have to go into our Materials tab over here on the right, scroll down to Settings, and change Blend Mode to Alpha Hashed and Shadow Mode to Alpha Hashed. And we also have to take the alpha here and connect it to alpha here. So that way the hairs are looking nice and hairy. Let's go ahead and go back to here and drag the alpha to the alpha, and I don't think there's any transparency on the body texture, but just to be safe, I'm going to make it that way anyway. So all of these other meshes are also the fur, so instead of having to select the fur on all the image texture nodes all over again, I'm just going to copy everything from the fur shader and delete on the next one and paste, and then just go down to alpha hashed and alpha hashed, and that's the next fur mesh looking nice and furry. So same thing for here, A, X, Control V, alpha hashed, alpha hashed. It's for AX, Control V, alpha hashed, alpha hashed. And just go ahead and repeat that process a few times for all of the different fur meshes. And now we're at the horns. So same as the process for the fur, we just have to go in, horn A, horn S, and then horn N. When you X this out and bring in a new image file, it's going to go back to the default color space value, which is sRGB, and for normal maps we have to change it to non-color for it to actually work. So there we have it, Beepus in Blender. You can, I don't know, mess around with him, put a little hat on him or something, I don't know. Yeah, you can mess around with the shading a bit if you want. You can turn down the roughness to make it look a little more wet. If it's a little bit too shiny for you, you can do Shift A and then add a math in between the specularity map and the shader, and then do subtract, and that way you can make it more or less shiny, depending on personal preferences. Obviously, Bloodborne's lighting engine is completely different from Blender's, and for characters with parts of their body that are glowing, like Rom, I couldn't figure out how to get that to actually look good in Blender. So if you know more about that than I do, then great, but if not, then don't worry about it, I guess. So that was an example of a pretty straightforward process for getting the model into Blender. There are a couple of situations where the process is going to be slightly different, so I'm going to go over that now. So let's say we wanted to get the blood liquor into Blender, so that would be C2130. And whenever you're grabbing the game files, you want to find your character here, but also check to see if there are any that the fourth digit is different, but the rest are the same. So we have 2130 and 2139, and then it goes to 2150, and you'll notice that in the spreadsheet, there is no 2139. That's because 2130 and 2139 are both the Blood Licker, because there are different variations of this enemy, like there are the ones with the small stomachs and the big stomachs. So it uses two sets of this. You'll see that with, say, the Clock Tower Patience, or patches for the Nightmare Apostle, and, you know, the bald variation and the variation with hair and stuff like that. So make sure that you grab these other character bind files, because otherwise you're going to extract this one and not see the textures, or only see some of them. So paste those in here. Go to Tools, Build, Browse, and then you'll see that when we extract it, no TPF to be found. That's okay, because it undcx'd the character bind file, which is what we need for Souls Model Tool, I believe. We can delete this folder because it doesn't have anything we need, and then browse and 2139 extract. And then this is what we need, the TPF with all the textures in it. Delete this, delete this, delete this, and delete this. Aqua tool set. Souls model tool. 2130. And if you drag the 2139 in, you'll see that it just gives us the messed up DDSs, so we don't want to do that, because the actual 3D model is only contained within the 2130. Browse, TPF, extract. Delete. And once again, you can see the roughness maps are just blank, and we can delete those, except for the body roughness map. As far as I can tell, the blood textures we don't really need for these purposes. But everything that, you know, looks like it has stuff in it, you are going to want. And then from here on out, the process will be exactly the same as it was for Beepus, so I'm not going to go through and do all that again. Just wanted to show you the extra TPF in a different character bind file consideration that you need to watch out for. You might also see with really big characters that some of the textures will be included in a TPF file that is outside of the character bind, and the process is pretty much the same. You just extract it with the Demon Souls BND Rebuild exe like you would a normal TPF file. And the other thing that you have to watch out for that I encountered while figuring this out is, so I was trying to import Ludwig, and the first mesh on his model is his sword. And I had converted these all from DDS to PNG, of course, and I was opening up the weapon A texture for the base color. And with Blender's default less intensive render engine, it was not displaying at all. It was just showing us the default pink. But with the more intensive render engine, it was actually working. But obviously it was very intensive on my computer, and I didn't want to have that going the whole time. So the solution was you have to actually go into the textures and look and see if toward the end of it there's like a long number string, and you have to delete that. You can do this before or after you convert everything to PNG, but yeah, if you have for some reason a number toward the end of it, then Blender just freaks out and doesn't know what to do, and I don't know why, but that's the solution I figured out, so there you go. And Ludwig is an example where if you find a map with the R in it that actually has something in it and isn't blank, just go ahead and do the same as you would with all of these, except plug the color into the roughness on the BSDF. So there you have it, getting Bloodborne models and textures into Blender with the shading and everything working quite nicely. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to post a comment. If you like Bloodborne content, please be sure to subscribe, because I'll, as you might suspect, be doing stuff with these models in the near future that's a little bit less tutorial-y. And check out the Souls modding wiki and Discord server. Like I said, this probably works with Elden Ring and Dark Souls and stuff, but I haven't checked, so there you go. And thanks for watching. Hope you found it enjoyable and informative, and goodbye.